MZTV.
For 11 years now, I have believed that the political left was going to build, or at least lay the foundations of a one-world government, which is necessary in order to usher in the final days of Millennium 6. I predicted this back in 2010, and I'm going to reference an article I wrote in a newsletter I was publishing at the time called the Clanging Gong News. I base my teaching here on Daniel chapter 7, the four beasts of Revelation. To me, the best book ever written on Daniel was A.E. Nock's book, Concordant Studies in the Book of Daniel. And in that book, A.E. Nock explained that the four beasts that Daniel saw coming out of the sea were not first and foremost political entities, but they were religious entities. I've talked about this many times. And there are only four major religions on the earth. There are offshoots of each of these. Those religions are Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, and Christianity. Now, the amazing thing is that these beasts proceed from east to west. And in Daniel chapter 7, the prophet says the eastern beast was a lioness, and then the leopardess, and then the she-bear, and then the indistinct beast, which the concordant version of the Old Testament translates a monstrous. The critical thing to understand from that whole prophecy was that the fourth and final beast, that is the most Western religion, i.e. Christianity, the chief characteristic of it was it has copper teeth and iron claws. In other words, it is mechanized destruction. It will be the most armed religion there ever was. And we see that now with Western powers, specifically the United States of America. This is Martin Zender. This is the part 8 that I promised you that I never got to. Apparently, many of you have forgotten because nobody has said lately, where's part 8 of the end of times? Well, here it is. This is part 8. I'm going to be careful, so I think I can get it on this platform. I'll tell you later about where part 3 and part 7 are. Well, you can go to part 7, and I have a link there to a Rumble video because I couldn't put it on this platform. It would be deleted. I think I'm going to be good. I'm going to use some careful phraseology here. But you may ask, well, how is the United States, who is the most armed nation on the earth, according to fact, which accords with prophecy, how is that also a religion? In God we trust. In God we trust. So-called. It's just a motto. It doesn't mean anything because hardly anybody in America trusts in God, as we know. Christianity is a false religion. It says it trusts in God. It is the most whitewashed wall in the world as far as religion goes. Names the name of Christ, uses the name of God, Yahweh, and Lord, and Elohim, and all that, but it's all a false front. Like I say, it's full of dead men's bones. It's full of the teaching of human free will, eternal torment. You know that drill. The most amazing thing the Apostle John saw in the unveiling of Jesus Christ was the amalgamation of religion and politics into a giant beast. And this is called the beast system. And it is an unholy alliance between an amalgamation of all four religions. I'm going to tell you how that happens in a second. And the most powerful world government, which is not in the end, which we're in, not going to be just the United States, but it's going to be an alliance of 10 nations, Western nations. But it's going to be constituted a one world government. You see, there must be one final one world government before God's government is instituted on the earth at the end of a terrible 7-year period called the tribulation. I believe we are seeing this being developed. No, actually, it started being developed, I believe, back around 2008. I think we saw in Barry, I'm using the Immaculate One, the first black president, we saw, I think, in my opinion, you can disagree with me. I wouldn't know why you'd want to, but you can if you want to. But the first steps were made to disassemble the United States as founded, to turn it into a different country, to turn it into a lesser country so that it would not stand out. So that, well, you see, you can't have a one world government if one nation stands out. So that man, Barry, very subtly tried to dismantle this country, cut it down to size, and made inroads in the rising of the powers that would desperately wish to institute a one world government. As I've said before, and as most of you know, this one world government is much cleaner than the one world governments of old, in that it is controlled by money. And there's only a few people on this planet that have most of the money. And they have been trying desperately to wreck this country. Now, what I used to think was that this country, the United States, was indeed going to be wrecked. And then this evil one world government would take over, and it would align itself with, it would make its way by means of force. But see, that's a little, I realize now that that was wrong, because that particular one world government, the evil one, the obvious one, they don't use force, really. They don't use armaments, I should say. They use subtlety. They use backroom deals. They use money to move people, to move nations to do what they want. They would bring the one world order without firing a shot. By infiltrating the educational system, by devolving the morals of a nation, by wrecking the family, the social fabric. That's how they would want to do it. So there's been this great battle against traditionalism and really a godlessness that would bring rise to a totalitarian power, a totalitarian government. But we have to have the crushing of the East by the West. So what I'm thinking now is that this country will not go down, that it will rise again, in spite of the many efforts to destroy it as founded, and it will become a major player unwittingly in a new world government or a new world order that will be on its face a righteous organization. Because my thinking is, well, let me define my terms. When I say left and right, I'm talking about political ideologies. For the sake of convenience, I will tell you how I believe things to be. Again, you can disagree with me. Why would you want to? But you can. Left are power-seeking communist types, power-seeking communist types who like central government and want central government to have their fingers in everybody's pie. The right is the leave me the hell alone branch of the political spectrum. Again, just like religions, there are many offshoots, but these are the major ideologies in the world. Really, it's either big government or small government. rule by the people or the taking over of the people by a large centralized governing body that doesn't follow any laws. Just look at Cuba, or look at North Korea, or look at Venezuela. Look at the old Soviet Union, that type of thing. What Dolph tried to do in the 1930s, okay? So what I'm thinking now is that the United States will remain intact as it was founded, and it is such a drawing force to religious people, because I'm going to explain this at the end of the show. Religious people, for some reason, are drawn, well, I know why, I'm going to explain it. Religious people are drawn to the right, not to the left, because the left is basically godless, generally. It's just a fact. That's their platform, basically. And they're sickened by the right, who God, country, apple pie, and my semi-automatic weapon. See, they hate that stuff. They hate it. They hate the Bible thumpers. They despise them. The left does. Because the left is strong, and they see people who need Jesus as weak. Of course, the problem is that these people who need Jesus are not truly true believers, so they will align themselves with a political entity because they have a political drive inside of them. No true believer really has a political drive. No true believer wants to take the reins of government and rework the world in accord with his or her own will. Which is not to say that true believers can't be in positions of government. They can, because one of the gifts Paul mentions in 1 Corinthians 12 is the gift of pilotage. In another version, it's called steerage. I think the concordance says steerage. It's managing things, managing people, managing people. That's politics, basically, managing people. Some people have a gift for it. And so these people should be in positions where they can help make things better for all of us. Please, make things better for all of us while we're alive. It would be nice. I'd rather live in this country than in North Korea, for instance. So whereas I once believed that the United States was going to fall, I now believe that it's going to rise in spite of the battle against it. And it's going to rise, I still believe this, under the orange guy. So this is what I see happening. I see the stage being set, as I told you in another video in this series. The stage is being set for a mighty movement that will conquer the evil, because there's a lot of evil going on in the world now. You know why? I'm not going to mention it. The one-niner thingy is being used by the left to leverage power and control over people's lives. So here's my theory since 2010. The left will build the New World Order. They will build the foundations of the one world government. But the right will take it over. Because you see, the right, they're too Christian-y to do evil things. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm just saying that the left is far more underhanded and will stop at nothing to get power. Nothing. Will stop at nothing. Comparatively, the right play by the rules. Comparatively. Okay? Comparatively. So the right just doesn't have the interest in running people's lives, because you might say, well, they're too busy making money. Fine, whatever. But they just don't have it in them to build this evil organization. The left does, and they have done it. It's on the brink. I mean, it is so ready to rise to the surface and take control. But again, I don't think this can be the final deception because of how evil it is, how diabolical, how overtly diabolical it is. I mean, a little over half the population of my country see through it. And if this many people see through it and recognize it as an evil, then it can't be the final deception. I've always said that I'll know that the final deception is here when Christians go for it wholesale. Did Christians like Barry? No. Did they like the guy who says it depends on what the definition of is? No. Christians have to fall in love with the final deception. Even the elect, that's us, would have to be kept by supernatural wisdom from God from falling for it. Because Jesus said even the elect would be deceived if it were possible. So this can't be it. If this is it, then I'm glad. It means we're on a faster track than I thought. But I think one more thing has to happen. I think that this Dr. Evil 007 villain type thing that's going on now with the people who are trying to control the levers of the one-niner thingy, it's just too cartoonish, like I've said. And you can see that the current fake administration is just falling apart by the day. By the day. Letting people in who are diabolical people. And again, this isn't a genius prediction, but I predict that there will be a terrible, terrible attack in this country by some of the people who are coming here from the Eastern nation. That the left is letting into the country purposely in order to cause unrest and chaos, because the left loves chaos. Because it's easier to say, we will rescue you from the chaos. The chaos that you created? Exactly. They create the chaos and then they claim to be the rescuers. That's how they operate. You may not like my political viewpoint, but this is just the truth. It is. So I see it just laying out perfectly, just like I wrote about in 2010. Now I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to the article that I wrote. But this is the key takeaway, is that the left builds the one world government, the new world order, but the right takes it over. And the feeling will be, well, it was evil, but now it's not, because the good guys have the controls. It's like the evil people flying the evil airplanes back in 2001, and then some good people on the plane take it over, and we say, well, now we've got it now, so there's no problem. But the good people, in my scenario, also have an agenda, and the result is going to be the same. It's just the people in control now are assuring everyone that it's okay because we got rid of the bad guys. But what we're going to see is a new breed of bad guys who are disguised as good guys. See, the bad guys aren't even disguised as good guys anymore. Back in the Barry days, the disguise was on, and it was very subtly being done, and it was lied about, but it was being done anyway. That is the building of the one world government. But at least it was presented back then as something completely different. But now, these many years later, the facade is off, and these people on the left don't care anymore. They're just flat out saying who they are and what they are. Some people got the clue when Barry was in the building that when he said, I want to remake the United States, I'm paraphrasing him, said he wanted to change it, fundamentally change the country. The ignorant people say, oh goody, oh, it's going to be a better country, there's going to be unity, there's going to be peace, there's going to be plenty, oh, what a uniter, finally we have a uniter in the White House. Are you Uniter. No. History has shown us that Barry was anything but a uniter. So it's all too, so now, but it's in your face, in your face. But the problem these people have is that they always overplay their hands. And there are enough sane people in this country who see it now for what it is. And there's going to be a groundswell after failure after failure after failure of the fake administration. There's going to be a groundswell of like, we need the orange man back. We need the orange man back. Because do you think that the orange man would have let this thing happen over in the East? Not a chance. You know that. Even the people who hate him know that. And even the people who hate him, they're going to get tired of the body bags. They're going to get tired of the domestic violence, terrorism. And there's going to be enough body bags that who's the alternative? Show me the alternative. I'll be willing to admit that the orange guy is not the man of lawlessness. I'd be willing to admit it. Tell me who the alternative is on the world stage. I'm willing to say that I'm wrong. And again, even as I am forwarding him as a prime candidate, I'm willing to see someone else. But it will be someone of that ilk. It may not be him, but it will be someone of that ilk. It will be a Western individual. It will be a quote-unquote Christian individual. It will be a quote-unquote powerful individual. And it will, or he will bring things into such a glorious state compared to the former wreckage, which is being wrecked as I speak. The people will just, yes, give us 4 more years of this, 8, 10, 12, whatever we need, please. This is better. It's going to be better for everybody. And most critically, I'm never going to get to my article. Most critically, the West will crush the East. That is prophecy. Daniel 7. The West crushes the East. It brings them all the religions become one gigantic religion, if only in name only. But the religion that you now see declaring war on the West, that religion, it will be idled. And now it's coming back. It's making a resurgence because of the exhumed body. It's making a resurgence. This is necessary because it is going to be finally and totally crushed mercilessly, and really, I would say rightly so, by the only guy with the will to do it. And we will go, yay, 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 and rightly so, because we'll be tired of the funerals, which I'm afraid are going to amp up the desire of the populace for a deliverer. There's so much evil now. I'm hearing that over and over again. I mean, you can see it. It's just terrifying. But I think there's one more stage. I'm experimenting with my light here. Ooh, this is interesting. There's one more stage. There's one more thing that has to happen. It's going to take a little longer because of that, but not much longer. And that is, there needs to be a righteous overcoming of this madness for a little while. Maybe 1 year, maybe 2. And it will be the good guys taking over the machine that the bad guys built. The good guys taking over the machine, the one world government, the new world order that the bad guys built. And I term that the new world order. And it will seem like a nirvana comparatively. Then you will know. And again, all Christians have to be on board with it. And as I said, the mark, which is associated with the 1-9er thingy, will be a more pleasant thing, a more popular thing, a much safer thing. The people who will die from the thing will provide, like lab rats, they will provide clues as to how to make it safer, how to make it more pleasing, and the advertising is going to be much better than a gigantic thingy that goes. And all this is going to happen swiftly, my friends. And it all started It all began to start, or I should say it all began to end, on September 23rd, 2017, with the constellation in the heavens that was seen by John as recorded in chapter 12 of the Unveiling. And I'll say one more thing. The thingy that came out of the thingy in that eastern nation where people like to play ping pong, that didn't just start in 2020. It started before, like somewhere around 2017. And I also see, I didn't see this before, I saw the West taking over the East as only the United States taking down the radical religion. But now, that's not the only thing that's East, is it? It's not just the radical religion that's East. It's that nation where they like to play ping pong. Didn't see that before, but I do see it now. It's the West versus the East. The West will crush the East and will declare that the evil has been conquered and we're now entering a new era of peace and prosperity. But that new world order will turn on a dime, maybe even a Roosevelt dime, and become the beast of Revelation.